Hey everyone. I know it's been a while. Lots been going on. We all know with the world. But I wanted to come on tonight because I have some information that I actually would like to share with you regarding COVID and my family's experience with it. So, in spite of the lockdown rules, we as a family decided that, we were going to get together for Thanksgiving. We do it every year. We enjoy our families. Sometimes it's the only time we see some of these family members on holidays. So, we decided that we were going to just continue with our plans. And we all went, had a great time, enjoyed our family, enjoyed the meal, and then we went home. And then Saturday, 2 days after, I wasn't feeling all that great. I had had a cough, but I've actually had this cough since October of 2018, so it really wasn't anything new. It just seemed to be a little bit more than normal, but I did have a pretty bad headache. So I wasn't really feeling all that great, but it never occurred to me that I had COVID. So Monday comes around and I'm still not feeling all that great. And I received a message from a family member that two of the family members that were at the Thanksgiving gathering tested positive for COVID. And I thought, oh, great, maybe I have COVID. So, in spite of the attempts of actually setting an appointment to go get a test, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So I actually never got tested. But 9 of my family members came down with the COVID. We all had the same symptoms: a headache, extreme fatigue, cough. I never had a fever. Some of the family members had fevers, low-grade fevers. There were some that had a little bit more like severe symptoms than myself, but for the most part, we all pretty much had the same symptoms, the same severity, and with the same time frame. There was 4 of my family members who all had the same symptoms, and they all got tested. 3 of them came back positive, and 1 of them came back negative. And the one that came back negative had the most severe symptoms. Don't understand that. So all in all, there were 7 of us that got tested that were positive. 2 were tested. 1 was negative, and he never had any symptoms. He never got the COVID. And then my niece, who was tested negative, but she was the one that had more severe symptoms than her mom and dad and her sister. And then I just never ended up getting tested, but because of my symptoms and the loss of smell and taste, I knew that I pretty much had COVID. My husband, he didn't have symptoms and never got tested, and so he seemed to be doing great. Now, prior to actually going to Thanksgiving, we kind of amped up on our immunities. We are into the Young Living essential oils, so a lot of us were taking the thieves, like a drop of thieves under your tongue, lemon, a drop of lemon. We were drinking teas just to build the immunities, and actually taking the elderberry gummy bears to build the immunities. I really believe that because we did that, and once finding out that we had COVID, we actually added oregano. So I would make capsules of oregano and thieves, and I would take those 2 or 3 times a day. And I only did it for 2 days, felt a lot better. But when I stopped taking those, I started drinking turmeric tea and ginger tea, and then putting a drop of lemon and a drop of thieves in the tea. And I really believe that that is what helped all of us to recover quickly from this COVID, and are keeping our symptoms a little bit more at bay, where they didn't get worse than what they actually were. Having said all that, I now am coming to the part where I really want to share this information. I think it might be beneficial to you if you end up getting COVID. I had said that my husband was doing fine. Well, at the tail end of all of us pretty much overcoming this COVID thing, my husband started not feeling all that great. So because of that, I really believe that he possibly was exposed from another source. I can't be 100% sure, but it kind of looks like that's the case with him. He ended up getting COVID. He ended up in the hospital. He had COVID pneumonia. Because of this whole pandemic thing, the hospitals are doing everything different. Nobody can go inside the hospital. The patients that come to emergency, they have, our hospital had an outside makeshift triage where they went ahead and the patients would wait while they were able to assess their situation. My husband was tested then, and it did come back as he was positive for COVID. They did chest x-rays, blood work. They put him on oxygen. His oxygen level was at 86, and they stated that if it's below 90 and you test positive for COVID, that you need to be admitted. So that's what they did. When they brought him in, I had to stay outside, and I pretty much was kind of had no idea what was going on. I didn't know that he would be admitted at the time. I didn't know he had tested positive for COVID. Nobody had told me anything. So I finally grabbed somebody that kept coming in and out. It was a nurse. And I asked him if he could please have somebody come out and tell me what was going on with my husband. A few minutes later, the nurse that took my husband in was the same one that came out to let me know what was going on. And at that time, she told me that he did test positive for COVID, that they were admitting him, that they would not allow me in there, and the only thing that I could do is go home and either wait for a call or call in to get updates on what was going on with my husband. Unfortunately, this part of the story is a lot of other people's stories. Everyone that has been experiencing this COVID and bringing your person to the emergency is pretty much blindsided as to there's nothing you can do. You can't go in. You can't. I happened to watch something on TV the next night, and I know that it had been filmed 6 months prior, and this lady had the exact same story. They did exactly the same thing with her, and she was freaking out, and nobody knew what was going on. And it was definitely an experience. So just be forewarned, if you bring somebody that has COVID, just be prepared that you are going to be waiting outside more than likely. You will not be allowed in, and go ahead and make a step to find out what's going on, because if you don't, nobody's going to come out and let you know. They're busy. They're not focusing on the spouse or the loved one that has brought the patient in. They're just trying to get through these patients as quickly as they can. That's my opinion anyway. The other thing that I noticed, that since my husband was diagnosed positive with COVID, I thought it was interesting that none of the nurses or doctors asked me if I had had COVID. Nobody said to me, since your husband did test positive for COVID, you need to quarantine, you need to stay away from people. Nobody said anything to me. Now, because I did have COVID and it was just recently, then I knew I was pretty much okay. But they didn't even ask to say, do you want a COVID test? You should probably be tested because your husband was just tested. Nobody said anything to me. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, so here's the real important part. I had said to my husband that when the doctor comes in, I want you to call me because I want to speak to the doctor. So he did. He called me when the doctor came in, and I had asked the doctor what they were doing, how they were treating him, and was he responding? Could he give me a time frame of what was going on? And this is what you need to know. The doctor's response to me was, he's responding to the treatment that we're giving him. I don't know why, because all of the other patients are not responding to this treatment and they're getting worse. Seriously, That is what he said to me. And my thought was, if you have been giving the same treatment to all of these patients that are coming in, and they're not responding, and they're getting worse, then why are you not doing something else? Why are you not trying a different type of treatment? We are not back in February and March when all of this was first happening, or that we knew was first happening. Why are we still so unsure about what we're doing and how we're treating these people? That was the moment that I believed the other things that I was hearing, that I tried not to believe, that I tried to think, people are upset, they're just saying this stuff because they're scared. Well, with this doctor's comment, that was proof to me in my eyes that they don't care. They're not doing whatever they can do to try and help these patients. I have heard people say that these doctors and hospitals are letting people die. And because that doctor made that comment to me, I can't say that I don't believe that now. Because that to me said, you don't care. And you're letting these people die. Please, if you have somebody that gets COVID and you take him to the hospital, please stay on top of what they are doing and how they are trying to treat him or her, whatever family member is there. I did hear that the whole ban for the hydroxychloroquine was now lifted and that doctors can now prescribe it again. Please ask about that medication. I did go ahead and send that information to my husband. I happened to find out that the ban was lifted I found out the next day after I had talked to the doctor. And so I went ahead and I sent him that information and said, please ask the doctor about this. Because the next day after this doctor said this to me, I had called my husband to see how he was doing, and he had had a setback. He wasn't feeling good, and it seemed like he was getting worse. So, of course, my first thought was the treatment they were giving, that the doctor said that he didn't understand why my husband was responding to it, now is not working. So it was a major scare for me. So I am begging you to please keep on top of the treatment that they're doing. Ask them what they're hoping will happen with this treatment, and ask them about the hydroxychloroquine, because back in February and March, it was stated, and there was a video with a bunch of doctors stating that this one doctor was treating her patients with hydroxychloroquine plus zinc, and these patients were getting well quickly. So please keep that in mind. If this is going to save your loved one, all you're doing is asking about it. Take a role in being instrumental in your loved one's wellness and care, because that is what is going to get them through the COVID and save their lives. Please take that seriously. Thankfully, the next day I had talked to my husband, and he was actually doing better. They actually told him they didn't want to get his hopes up, but that they were possibly thinking of releasing him that day. There was a series of medication that they were giving him, and he was going to receive the last dosage of that day. He was off the oxygen. We had a lot of prayer going. Don't forget the prayer. I put out a prayer request, and tons of prayers were happening. So ask people to pray. He was able to be released. He's been home for a couple of days now. He's been taking it easy. He's getting better every single day. I can see that he's getting stronger. So our story ended in a positive note. And I'm posting this because I want your guys' story to end on a positive note. Do whatever you can to save your loved one. Be instrumental. That's all I can say. And hopefully this information will help you. I do want to say that I don't believe that all doctors are bad. I don't believe all of them want their patients to die. The nurses want them to die. I'm not saying that. There's so many good doctors and nurses in hospitals. But in my case, in this particular situation, with that doctor making that comment, it's very concerning. So just be aware. Be aware of who is treating your loved one and be instrumental in their care. All right? So that's it. I hope that this helps you with information. Hopefully you don't even have to worry about it because nobody in your family is going to get COVID and you can just live your happy lives. But in case, maybe this information can help. God bless your family, and I hope everyone stays well. Thanks for watching.